Analysis of a communication crash using social exchange theory. What is social exchange theory? Social exchange theory is a theory made up from John Thibault and Harold Kelly, who were both social psychologists and are considered to be an exemplary model of scientific collaboration due to their research together. Social exchange theory works off of the basic idea of cost versus rewards. Much like this image shows of monetary exchange, the costs and rewards in a relationship are very similar. Costs being what you're putting into the relationship, rewards being what you get out of it. Not necessarily being material goods, but this could be emotional support as being a reward and a cost. John Thibault and Harold Kelly's work on this theory was based off of some assumptions about human nature, being that humans avoid punishment, seeking for better quality of life and well-being, that humans are rational beings, and that our standards vary over time. The other assumptions that they made were about the relationship nature. This would be that relationships are interdependent from one another, and also that relational life is a process that continues to be worked on and evolves over the years. So what was the breakdown that we're talking about? This breakdown was with a past relationship that was pretty long, and for the ending of this relationship, it seemed that there was different expectations of what either person wanted and what we were willing to put into it, none of which had been communicated or even realized fully at the time that what we were talking about was cost and rewards. This escalated to the point that both me and this ex came together to discuss what we wanted, what we were willing to put into the relationship, and that it just wasn't going to work out. So what can be applied from social exchange theory to communication breakdowns such as this one that I have described, especially it being the end of a relationship? There's some key things that can be learned from social exchange theory, one of which is using comparison levels, or CLs, which are defined as being a standard for what a person thinks he or she should get. Now this would be looking at a relationship and saying, what do I want from this? What could it be? What should it be? This could be based off of past experiences of what it has been, or it could be based off of what you think it should be going forward and what you're willing to work on or what costs you're willing to put in to get to that point. There's also using comparison level for alternatives, or CL alt. And this is different than CLs because this is defined as how people evaluate a relationship based on what their alternatives to the relationship are. So this isn't saying what you want from the relationship you're in, it's thinking about what you could have outside of that relationship. If the relationship ends, are you going to be happy? Would you eventually find someone else? Those kind of concerns. The last thing is measuring power, and this power is defined as being the degree of dependence a person has on another for outcomes. So take me and my ex, for example. For a majority of the relationship, she had the power because I was more dependent on the rewards than she was. I was more willing to put in more in terms of cost because I needed those rewards more than she did. So that shifted the power to her, and then power kind of became more balanced as I started to use CL alts to realize that I could be happier outside of the relationship. Some recommendations after looking into social exchange theory would be that self-interest can be used to enhance a relationship. This can be that you look at your relationship and see that there might be that imbalance of power like I talked about, or that you're putting in more than what you're getting out. This doesn't mean that the relationship has to end. It means that you realize where you're at, what you're putting in versus what you're getting out, and that you want something different. This can be addressed with each relationship that we have. Another recommendation I would have is to not get too hung up on social exchange theory. It'd be easy to, every relationship we have, nitpick it, look at, oh, I'm putting way too much into this versus what I'm getting out. I need to get out of that relationship. It doesn't have to necessarily be that way. Social exchange theory in terms of cost reward is a lot easier with long-term relationships that you're really analyzing to say, how long have I been putting in these costs, and how long have I been not getting rewards or getting these rewards, and is it worth it? Another thing we learned from this is helping others realizing their own CLALTs or CLALTs. This is the classic example of having a friend who maybe has a boyfriend or girlfriend that you don't think is good for them, but you don't understand why they're staying with them. And this could be because they're not realizing the alternatives to that relationship, that they could be happier without that high cost, low reward relationship. What we learn and moving forward is important. Like I kind of talked about in my recommendations, it's not necessarily that we need to get hung up on what we're getting versus what we're putting in. There's a lot of relationships that kind of ebb and flow in terms of what each person needs and what they're putting in or what they're able to put in. But if we can be in the mindset of putting in what we want out of the relationship, and that we're mindful that we're getting those things out, and also communicating effectively with the other person that maybe those needs aren't getting met, they can help us with all of our relationships.